I get it. We did make this video 2 days ago talking about the Vancouver Canucks and the Elias Lindholm conversation and how, based off of what we had been seeing, it really wasn't looking all too good when it comes to the Lindholm talk. And if you're on the train of saying that Elias Lindholm should return to the Vancouver Canucks, you unfortunately might be setting yourself up for disappointment. 29 years old, 6 feet, 194. He was the really good playoff performer that he was, 10 points in 13 games. Very subpar regular season to end off his Vancouver Canucks year. But for Elias Lindholm, this was a trade that a lot of Canucks fans kind of understood the assignment with. Hey, this is supposed to be a rental. He's not supposed to come back. If he does come back, then great. If he doesn't, then that's fine. But we had ourselves Elliotte Friedman on the recent Jeff Merrick show talking about this. We spoke about how the Vancouver Canucks were willing to go 7x7 for Lindholm. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. So, the Canucks are looking at this like, we probably can't keep him. What's our next option? This is a big one. Because for Friedman to go out there and say that the Vancouver Canucks are okay with a 7x7 deal, only for it to not happen, it pretty much means, by proxy, that Elias Lindholm has rejected that number. And you can see some of the replies here. Sell his rights, get a middle pick. Lindholm turned down a 7 or 8 year by $9 million contract with the Flames. He turned down a $7 million contract with the Canucks. I hope he knows what he is doing. And you know what? For Lindholm's sake, I hope that the same thing goes on here, that he knows what he's doing and that he's able to be financially happy as the years go on. Because rejecting this kind of money with Calgary and eventually Vancouver, his value is going down, unfortunately. Like, 82 points, 82 games played in 21-22, that was the peak of Elias Lindholm's career. And he was so good back then. 42 goals, man. He was a 40-goal scorer playing with Tkachuk and Gaudreau, but just could not carry up that same level of success with Huberdeau and Kadri and eventually some of the other guys in Calgary that they had played. But Lindholm being in this spot now to reject a $7 million deal after rejecting an $8 million deal, yeah, he's losing dollars every month that goes by, it seems like. I have no doubt that if Elias Lindholm were to go in a free agent market, he probably would get a little bit more than 7x7, especially if teams are going to be recency biased and look at his playoffs only, because, you know, a right-handed, penalty-killing, defensively-minded two-way center that can play top 6 minutes, that's valuable, especially for a guy like Lindholm who had that level of success before. But him calling the shots here, it doesn't really seem to be going well. He hasn't accepted any of the contracts that he was given, and now we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens in the free agent market, because some of these numbers may not actually be all too great if you really look at them. The Merrick Show suggested that Elias Lindholm may have turned down a 7x7 offer from Van. Previously, he was reported to have rejected an $8 to $9 million long-term deal with Calgary. And JFresh went out there and posted this, Elias Lindholm's projected wins above replacement number. He's in the bottom half of the NHL. Just under mid, 47%. His wins above replacement in 23-24 was near zero, if you look at that chart in the top right of your screen. He was a near 100 percentile player back in 21-22, that year where he had 82 points. Lindholm's numbers in Vancouver really tanked his overall advanced analytics, and you can see right here, he was a great special teams player, 68 percentile power play, 51 percentile penalty killing, but his even strength numbers were actually not great. 28 percentile in the offensive category, 32 percentile in the defensive category, and JFresh went out there and said this as well. Lindholm had a disappointing 23-24 season, putting up poor underlying numbers as well as unimpressive microstats. He can still get open for dangerous looks, but he just scored 6 5v5 goals in 75 games this season, tying him with snipers like Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Eric Goodbranson. Lindholm this year had a 5% even strength offensive wins above replacement number. He was in the bottom 5% of NHL players. That is terrible. His 41 percentile defensive wins above replacement at even strength 2 was not great. Power play, PK, finishing, nothing here was really good except for shots off of high danger passes. He could convert on his really good opportunities in front. That's about it. Elias Lindholm Like, the thing is with this number, if you had asked me, just blank off the hop, hey Lego, what do you think Elias Lindholm's even strength offensive wins above replacement number is? I wouldn't have said 5. I wouldn't have thought that he was that bad, that he only would have been in the bottom 5% of the NHL. But you gotta remember, this sample that is talked about includes this 49-game sample with the Calgary Flames, where he did have 32 points, which is pretty good, but it still wasn't as good as what he had done in the past. And of course, his numbers in Vancouver, the 12 points, 26 games, these were really bad. Like, Elias Lindholm, for the majority of this 26-game sample in the regular season with the Canucks, was really ineffective. No points, pretty much. He came alive in the playoffs, but that was about it, and a 13-game sample isn't enough to go out there and heavily skew the numbers over here. Thus, you have the offensive profile that looks like 5%, the defensive profile that looks like 41%. These microstats are not great at all. Jay Fresh then goes out there and says this: he had the highest on-ice 5v5 goal share for the Canucks in the playoffs with 62%, but it must be said that he did enjoy a 16.4% on-ice shooting percentage, the highest of any forward who had played 150-plus minutes. So I'm not saying it's like he got lucky, but it's more so that he did shoot at a rate that you wouldn't really debate is sustainable. Like, 16.4% is top of the NHL goal-scoring category type shooting percentage. We saw Andrei Kuzmenko have a huge 20% something, 18% shooting percentage last year. It was really big. The fact is, only elite goal scorers like Steven Stamkos can consistently go out there and get 16+% per year and sustain that. Lindholm is much more likely to regress to a lower shooting percentage for a guy who wasn't really scoring too many 5v5 goals anyway. So there isn't really too great of a profile if you wanted to project it based off of advanced even strength analytics. Snipers, man. Look at the ties. Mark-Edward Vlasic, Eric Branson, these are the same amount of goals that he is tied for. That is not great. And if you go down and you read some of the replies, there are a few extra arguments that are talked about here. He is a potential point-per-game 6-1 center. He might be hoping for a bidding war after July 1st. He can still go back to the table with Vancouver and Calgary, though, if no better offers come. Some team might be desperate to offer even more. Potentially point per game if you put him between two superstars having career seasons. Yeah, unfortunately, like Elias Lindholm at this point in his career, it's looking more so like that 82-point season was a product more so of the guys that he was playing with, rather than him being as good as a 42-goal, 82-point season would imply. I mean, he was playing with Tkachuk and Gaudreau, and they were both so good. Even last year, you could say, Lindholm had a really good season in the playoffs this year, 10 points, 13 games. Who was he playing with then? Joshua and Garland, those guys were amazing, especially together. The chemistry and the fit there with Lindholm, the minutes, it was all working so well. So if Elias Lindholm thinks that he is a guy who is worth maybe more than $9 million, considering he already apparently rejected that contract from Calgary, I'm sorry, man, but he's not that $10 million guy. Sure, you could say that the argument could have been made that he was as important to that top line in Calgary as Gaudreau and Tkachuk were, but still, there wasn't much to say that he was equal. You don't really base contract values off of how important a guy is. You try to do it based off of how skilled they are. And there is a difference, mind you. Very, very big difference. Just because a guy is cheap, just because a guy is less than $5 million does not mean he cannot be of more importance to your team. So for Lindholm to apparently want more money in the offseason, already rejecting a 7x7 from Van, rejecting an 8x9 from Calgary, it is a pretty big deal. And Elliotte Friedman, he's one of the many insiders that's gone out there and talked about this on the airwaves. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Elias Lindholm rejecting a seemingly okay $7x7 million deal, how the Vancouver Canucks were even crazy enough to offer that kind of money to a third-line guy. He would essentially be third-line, right? Because you have Miller, Petey, and then Lindholm, unless you wanted to do Lotto 649 and then have Lindholm as a second-line guy, which then again, things would be a little bit different if you tried that. But then again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Elias Lindholm and this rejected contract number. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.